Greetings, I'm Dave Householder, and I am blessed to be your Bible teacher every day. And I'm going to take you into some pretty deep weeds here. And these deep weeds are called the book of the prophet Isaiah. Now, there is no book in the Bible that is harder to understand than the book of Isaiah. It's virtually impossible at any given point to know exactly who is writing to whom, for what reason, from where, and at what time. It's sort of timeless and spaceless. It's like a photo album full of pictures that don't really have dates or names on them. And you see events and you see prophecies, and it's really hard to know what's going on. If you don't believe me, so every book of the Bible is so easy a kid can understand. I've heard that. The Bible's so easy. No, there's parts of the Bible that are really tough. And the book of Isaiah is one of those places. And this is one of the few places where you can sort of tell what's going on in Israel at the time. The country had divided, much like America did, into North and South during the Civil War. That happened to us here in America, and they were divided into Northern Kingdom, which is called Israel, and the Southern Kingdom, which was called Judah. And the Assyrians were the superpower out in the Mesopotamian area in modern-day Iraq, and they would show up with their iron chariots and wreak havoc wherever they went. And they outnumbered the people of Judah, where Isaiah was prophesying from Judah, not from the northern kingdom, from the southern kingdom. Judah included Jerusalem, Zion, and in came the Assyrians, and they absolutely rode herd on the northern kingdom. And you've heard of the ten lost tribes of Israel, where that's where that phrase came from. We've never heard or seen from them again after the Assyrians got done with them. And they were at the door of Jerusalem, so they got wiped out the northern kingdom. Were headed into the southern kingdom. Now, the Southern Kingdom is a little bit tougher with chariots. If you've ever been to Jerusalem, you have to take switchbacks to get up there. It is not very chariot-friendly terrain. It's like going up to Big Bear here in California. It's way the heck up there, and it's difficult. It's very easy to defend, but the people of Israel had been destroyed, and the people of Judah were turning to the Egyptians, the other superpower in the area, to form an alliance against the Assyrians. And Isaiah says that's a big mistake. Trust the Lord instead. You don't want to rely on military power to save you at a situation like this, because as we know, the people of God had a kind of spotted history with Egypt. After all, they've been slaves there for centuries and everything else. So the situation was such that Isaiah was calling them to rely on the Lord, to rely on themselves, and not to rely on Egypt. And a whole bunch of stuff is happening here in Isaiah chapter 30, and a lot of it's negative. But when we get to verse 19, Isaiah comforts the people of Israel. And here's what he says. For a people shall dwell in Zion, that's in Jerusalem, southern kingdom. In Jerusalem you shall weep no more. He will surely be gracious to you at the sound of your cry. As soon as he hears it, he answers you. And though the Lord give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet your teacher or teachers, we're not sure what the original text says, will not hide himself for themselves anymore, but your eyes shall see your teacher or your teachers. And you shall get rid of your idols, and that'll be a great relief. And some good things are going to happen to you. You're going to trust the Lord. Now, it's difficult to trust God when we're in times of affliction and times of trouble. And bread and water are powerful symbols in the Old Testament. Bread, of course, we have manna in the Old Testament where the people of Israel, God's people, were fed in the wilderness. And the water came from the rock. And a lot of that's associated with Miriam. And yet that's been turned into a bad tasting affliction and the water of suffering here. And what Isaiah is saying here is that things are very complicated. And when things are the most complicated, the most political, the most intrigue-oriented, the most corrupt, that is the time to rely on God the most. And it's so tempting not to. It's tempting to look at what you can hold and what you can handle, like these idols you can see. And that's why the Israelites wanted the golden calf, because they thought, okay, this is something we can actually see and follow. And that's why they wanted an alliance with the Egyptians, because the Egyptians were real people with real chariots. Maybe they'll come and fight the Assyrians. But Isaiah is saying, hey, there's a cost to that. They'll take over if you let them come in to fight the Assyrians. They're not going home when they're done. And so trusting God for you and for me in difficult times, in a pandemic, which there's really no light at the end of the tunnel at this point, and lots of people have these strong opinions and all kinds of ideas of what's going on. And they're so sure that this is it or that's it. Sometimes we just have to sit back and rely on the Lord. And I know that sounds like a pious Hallmark card, but anytime things are getting really, really bad, it's the best option. It's the best option. Getting rid of those idols, trusting the teachers of the word. This talks about the teachers or the teacher. Trusting that God is the same forever and he keeps his promises. And looking back on your life, he's kept every one of them. So let's look forward and trust God. We're leaving God out of the equation here as if he has nothing to say about anything that's going on in our country or in the world. And I think trusting the Lord brings a certain peace, and it allows us to go out and serve our brothers and sisters in the community and help people. I think Christians are either afraid to go out or they're a little bit overly zealous for their political opinions right now. And nobody's going out serving and helping those most in need, and perhaps even putting ourselves in harm's way to do that. Christians have done that for centuries. And if we let God guide us, that's going to happen. So I realize that this is not particularly clear, but that's the way Isaiah is. Some things that are deep are not simple. So just let it be what it is and trust God. And that's the good news for today. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow.